They say the heart knows what it wants before the mind catches up. But what happens when your heart has been silent for so long that you forget it even has a voice? My name is Alina Cross, and for 28 years I lived life by the book, every decision calculated, every risk measured, every emotion carefully contained within acceptable boundaries. I was the girl who colored inside the lines, who never missed a deadline, who always had a backup plan for her backup plan. But on a rain-soaked Tuesday in October, everything I thought I knew about myself shattered like glass hitting concrete. This is the story of how I learned to listen to the one voice I'd been ignoring my entire life, the voice of my own heart. The fluorescent lights of Morrison and Hayes Consulting hummed their eternal monotone as I stared at the spreadsheet on my screen. Row 247. Column K. The numbers blurred together like they always did after the 10th hour of work. But I didn't stop. I never stopped. Alina, you're still here. I looked up to find Marcus Chen, my colleague and the closest thing I had to a friend at the firm, leaning against my cubicle wall. His tie was loosened, his jacket draped over his arm, the universal signs of someone ready to embrace their evening. Just finishing the Riverside projections, I said, my fingers still dancing across the keyboard. Peterson wants them first thing tomorrow. Marcus shook his head, a mixture of admiration and concern crossing his face. Peterson wants a lot of things, doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your entire life for them. I'm not sacrificing anything, I replied automatically. I'm building my career. Alina, Marcus pulled up a chair, his voice dropping to that gentle tone that always made me uncomfortable because it suggested he could see something I was trying to hide. When was the last time you did something just for yourself, something that wasn't on a checklist or part of a 5-year plan? I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it again. The truth was, I couldn't remember. My life was a series of objectives, each one leading to the next. Graduate summa cum laude, check. Land a job at a top consulting firm, check. Make junior partner by 30, in progress. That's what I thought, Marcus said softly. He stood, touching my shoulder briefly. There's more to life than this, you know. One day you're going to wake up and realize you've been so busy building a life that you forgot to live one. After he left, his words echoed in the empty office. But I pushed them away, burying them under another column of numbers, another projection, another perfectly executed plan. If only I'd known that in exactly 4 days, Marcus's prediction would come true in the most unexpected way possible. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that makes you believe in new beginnings. I'd scheduled my usual routine: 7 a.m. run through Riverside Park, 8:30 a.m. shower, 9:00 a.m. grocery shopping, 10:00 a.m. start on next week's meal prep. Everything organized, everything controlled. But at 9:47 a.m., standing in line at Been There, Done That, the coffee shop I visited every Saturday for exactly one medium Americano, no sugar, something shifted in the universe. The shift came in the form of a man who stumbled through the door carrying what appeared to be half an art supply store, a portfolio case, and an expression of beautiful chaos. He had paint, actual paint, dried in the creases of his hands, smudged on his temple, and somehow on his left shoe. His dark hair stuck up in directions that suggested either a very adventurous night or a complete disregard for mirrors. He was, in a word, disaster. And when he looked up and his eyes, warm brown with flecks of gold, met mine, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Something that made my carefully organized chest feel suddenly crowded, like my heart had expanded 2 sizes without permission. Sorry, he muttered to the people he'd inadvertently bumped with his supplies. His portfolio case caught the edge of a chair, sending it scraping across the floor. He winced. Really sorry. I should have looked away. I should have focused on my phone, checking my to-do list, mentally preparing for the grocery run. But I didn't. I watched as he made it to the counter, watched as he ordered with an enthusiasm that suggested coffee was a delightful surprise rather than a necessary fuel. And could you make it extra sweet? He was saying to the barista. I know, I'm supposed to appreciate the subtle notes of the bean, but I never claimed to be sophisticated. I paint things. Sophistication is for people who own ties. The barista laughed, actually laughed, and I realized with a start that I was smiling too. When was the last time I'd smiled at a stranger's nonsense? He paid, grabbed his complicated beverage creation, and turned directly into me. The collision happened in slow motion. His elbow hit my forearm, my carefully held Americano flew up, and gravity took over with malicious glee. Hot coffee arced through the air in a perfect parabola before cascading down the front of my cream-colored blouse, my favorite blouse, the one I'd bought specifically because it said competent professional who has her life together. Oh God, oh no, He was already reaching for napkins, his face a portrait of absolute horror. I'm so incredibly sorry, here, let me. It's fine, I said automatically, even though coffee was currently seeping through to my skin and my morning schedule was now completely ruined. Really, it's not fine, I just assaulted you with hot coffee. He thrust a pile of napkins at me, then seemed to realize that was insufficient. Go to the bathroom, I'll buy you another coffee, and a new shirt. Do they sell shirts here? They should sell shirts. This is exactly the kind of place that needs emergency shirt inventory. Despite the coffee burning slightly against my skin, despite my ruined blouse, despite every logical reason to be irritated, I laughed. Actually laughed, a real laugh that came from somewhere deep and genuine. They don't sell shirts, I said, dabbing uselessly at the spreading stain, but I appreciate the sentiment. Then I'll run to the store down the street. What size are you? Actually, don't answer that, that's weird to ask. I'll just guess, you look like a medium. Is that offensive? I don't know shirt politics. Stop, I said, still laughing. It's okay, really, I live close by, I'll just go home and change. He looked genuinely anguished, his supplies sliding dangerously under his arm. At least let me buy you another coffee, and maybe a pastry. I feel like a pastry doesn't make up for assault, but it's a start. I should have said no, my schedule was already disrupted. I needed to change, stick to my plan, maintain my routine, but those brown and gold eyes were so earnest, and something in my chest, that same something that had felt crowded before, was practically shouting at me to say yes. Okay, I heard myself say, one coffee and maybe a croissant. His face broke into a smile that could have powered the entire coffee shop. Deal, I'm River, by the way, River Hayes, and before you ask, yes, my parents were hippies, and yes, I've heard all the jokes about my name. Alina, I said, taking his extended hand. It was warm and rough with dried paint, and the handshake lasted a fraction longer than professional courtesy required. Alina Cross, no interesting story about my name, my parents were accountants. Accountants, River repeated solemnly. The natural predators of hippies, this could be a problem for us. Us, I raised an eyebrow. Well, yeah, after I buy you apology coffee, we're basically friends now, that's how it works. It's in the Coffee Assault Handbook, page 7, paragraph 3. And just like that, standing in a coffee shop with a stained blouse and a disrupted schedule, talking to a complete stranger who painted things and didn't own ties, I felt my heart begin to whisper. It was quiet at first, so quiet I could almost ignore it. Almost. I did go home and change. I did text Marcus to cancel our planned afternoon work session. What I didn't do was stick to my schedule, and that small rebellion felt both terrifying and exhilarating. River and I ended up talking for 3 hours. We sat at a corner table, my replacement Americano and his sugar bomb latte between us, and he told me about his life in brushstrokes and half-finished anecdotes. He was a painter. A real one, not a hobby painter, who'd spent the last 2 years in Barcelona before returning to the city because his grandmother was sick and someone needed to help her with her garden and her stubborn insistence on independence. She's 87 and still climbs ladders to trim tree branches, River said, shaking his head with obvious affection. Last month she tried to move a piano by herself because she didn't want to bother anyone. My parents don't understand why I came back, but I couldn't stay away. She's the one who taught me to see color in everything, you know? Before her, I just saw surfaces. After her, I saw light and shadow and the way orange looks next to blue at sunset. That sounds beautiful, I said and meant it. It is, she is. He took a sip of his coffee, leaving a tiny foam mustache that he didn't seem to notice. What about you? What does Alina Cross do when she's not being assaulted by clumsy artists? I work in consulting, I said, the words feeling suddenly hollow. Business analysis, efficiency optimization, that sort of thing. Efficiency optimization, River repeated slowly like he was tasting the words. That sounds very organized. It is. Do you love it? The question caught me off guard. No one had ever asked me that. They asked if I was good at it, yes. If it paid well, yes. If I saw potential for advancement, yes. But love? It's a good job, I said finally. Stable, respectable, good benefits. River studied me with an intensity that made me want to squirm. That's not what I asked. Why does love matter? I found myself getting defensive. Not everything has to be about passion and feeling. Some things are about building a solid foundation, making smart choices. Sure, River said easily, not rising to my defensiveness. But passion is what makes the foundation worth building. Otherwise, you're just constructing a very nice prison. The words hit harder than they should have. I thought about my apartment, perfectly decorated in neutral tones, everything in its place, not a single item that didn't serve a function. I thought about my closet full of professional attire in blacks and grays and the occasional daring navy. I thought about my calendar, color-coded and optimized, every hour accounted for. When had I last done something impulsive? When had I last felt truly excited about waking up in the morning? Sorry, River said, apparently reading something in my expression. I didn't mean to sound preachy. My grandmother says I do that, get all philosophical when I should just shut up and enjoy the coffee. It's just, life's too short to spend it optimizing, you know. Sometimes you have to make a mess, that's where the good stuff happens. In the mess, I asked skeptically. Absolutely, you can't make art without making a mess. You can't really live without taking risks. He leaned forward, gesturing with his hands in that animated way of his. Like, take today, I wasn't supposed to be at this coffee shop. I was supposed to be at the gallery across town, but I took a wrong turn and ended up here instead. And if I hadn't, I wouldn't have met you. That's life being messy and perfect at the same time. You also wouldn't have thrown coffee all over me, I pointed out. Details, River said with a grin. Messy, perfect details. Before I left, River asked for my number. He did it awkwardly, pulling out his phone and almost dropping it, then claiming he needed it, just in case the coffee stain turns out to be permanent and you need to sue me for damages. I gave it to him, and when I walked home, my grocery shopping forgotten, my meal prep abandoned, my schedule in shambles, I felt something that should have been anxiety but instead felt dangerously close to happiness. That night my phone buzzed with a message. This is River from the coffee assault incident. Just wanted to make sure you made it home okay and that your shirt survived. Also, I realized I never asked if you had allergies before recommending that croissant. That would have been a terrible end to our friendship. Local artist kills woman with pastry. The headlines write themselves. I smiled at my phone like an idiot, then I wrote back, shirt is in critical condition but expected to survive. No allergies, friendship remains intact. His response came immediately. Good, because I was thinking and feel free to say no, but I'm doing this thing tomorrow. An open studio event at my workspace. Completely casual, just people looking at art and drinking cheap wine and pretending to understand abstract expressionism. Wanna come? As friends, friends, not date friends. Unless you want date friends, I'm going to stop typing now. I stared at the message for a long time. Tomorrow was Sunday. Sundays were for meal prep, laundry, reviewing the upcoming week's schedule, and maybe a video call with my mother where she'd ask about my progress toward partnership. My fingers typed without my brain's permission. What time? The studio was in a converted warehouse in the arts district, the kind of space that smelled like paint and possibility. I'd changed outfits 3 times before settling on jeans and a simple black sweater, then changed twice more before forcing myself out the door. It was ridiculous. This wasn't a date. River had been very clear about that. We were friends. So why did my heart feel like it was trying to escape my chest? River met me at the entrance, wearing paint-stained jeans and a faded blue button-down with the sleeves rolled up. His hair was slightly less chaotic than yesterday, which somehow made him even more attractive. He broke into that sunrise smile when he saw me. You came? He said it like he was genuinely surprised, like he'd half expected me to bail. Come on, I'll show you around. Warning, there will be a lot of people who use words like juxtaposition and postmodern unironically. Just nod and look thoughtful, that's what I do. The studio was enormous, divided into sections by half walls and curtains. Various artists had set up their workspaces, and people wandered through with plastic cups of wine, studying canvases and sculptures with varying degrees of actual interest versus social performance. But then River led me to his corner, and I stopped breathing. The walls were covered in paintings. No, calling them paintings felt insufficient. They were explosions of color and emotion, each one telling a story that bypassed my brain and spoke directly to something deeper. There were cityscapes that captured the loneliness of urban life, portraits that seemed to see through pretense, abstract pieces that somehow made sense even though they shouldn't. I struggled for words that weren't beautiful or amazing because those felt too small. River, these are incredible. He shoved his hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable with the praise. They're just what comes out, you know. I don't really plan them, I just start painting and see what happens. You don't plan them, I was scandalized, at all. Nope, planning kills it for me, I need to feel my way through. He moved to stand beside me, looking at his own work like he was seeing it for the first time. That one there, the blue one with all the chaos, I started that after my grandmother had a bad day. She couldn't remember my name, just for an hour, but still, I went home and just painted how it felt. All that confusion and fear and love mixed up together. I looked at the painting again and now I could see it. The disorientation, the desperate grasping for connection, the love threading through everything like a lifeline. It's devastating, I whispered. Yeah, River said softly, but also hopeful. See those gold threads? Those are the moments when she comes back, when she smiles and says my name and I know she's still in there fighting. We stood there in silence, and I realized I was dangerously close to crying over a painting by a man I'd known for less than 24 hours. "Want to see my favorite?" River asked, apparently sensing I needed a mood shift. He led me to a smaller canvas tucked in the corner. It showed a coffee shop, clearly been there, done that, with two figures barely sketched in the foreground. One was surrounded by sharp lines and geometric shapes, the other was a blur of color and movement. Between them, a coffee cup hung suspended in midair, caught in the moment before disaster. "I painted this last night," River admitted, not looking at me. "After you left. It's rough, just a sketch really, but I couldn't stop thinking about that moment. How you laughed instead of getting angry. How you said yes to coffee when you probably had 100 better things to do. How you made me feel like maybe all my chaos wasn't such a bad thing." My heart wasn't whispering anymore, it was shouting. It was rattling the cage I'd built around it for 28 years and demanding to be heard. "River," I started, but was interrupted by a woman in avant-garde clothing and aggressive glasses. "Darling," she exclaimed, swooping in to air-kiss River's cheeks. "These new pieces are divine, absolutely divine. I must have the grandmother series for the gallery. Marcus will die when he sees them." As she swept River into conversation about exhibitions and price points, I stepped back, feeling suddenly out of place. This was his world, spontaneous, creative, filled with people who lived by feeling rather than planning. What was I doing here? I was the girl who made spreadsheets, who optimized efficiency, who colored inside the lines. But then River looked over his shoulder at me and his expression said clearly, "Please don't leave, please stay." So I stayed. I drank cheap wine and nodded at pretentious art commentary and felt completely out of my depth and utterly alive all at once. Later, as the crowd thinned, River found me staring at his coffee shop painting again. "Alina," he said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "What are you afraid of?" The question was so direct, so unexpected that I answered honestly. "Everything. I'm afraid of everything. Failure, success, making wrong choices, taking risks, being out of control. I'm afraid that if I stop planning, if I stop optimizing, everything will fall apart." "And what if it doesn't?" River asked. "What if it comes together instead?" "That's not how life works." "Maybe not your life, but maybe it could be." He turned to face me fully. "I'm not trying to change you, I barely know you, but I see something in you, Alina, something you're keeping locked up so tight it can't breathe, and I just wonder, what would happen if you let it out just a little?" I wanted to argue. I wanted to explain about responsibility and maturity and the difference between reckless abandon and sensible living. But looking at his paintings, looking at the way he'd captured chaos and somehow found beauty in it, I wondered if maybe he had a point. "I don't know how," I admitted. River smiled. "That's okay, that's what the mess is for, that's where you figure it out." We left together, walking into the cool evening air. River offered to walk me home and I said yes even though I lived in the opposite direction. We took the long way, talking about everything and nothing: his grandmother's garden, my mother's expectations, his time in Barcelona, my college years spent in the library. At my building's entrance, River hesitated. "Can I see you again?" And I know I said friends, but I should probably be honest. "I'm feeling very not friends about you, Alina Cross. Is that completely terrifying?" Absolutely terrifying, I confirmed. But maybe the good kind of terrifying, like roller coasters or trying sushi for the first time. Maybe, I said, my heart hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. Probably, yes. His smile could have lit the entire city. Tomorrow, dinner, I promise no coffee will be involved. Dinner, I agreed, then in a burst of courage that felt like stepping off a cliff I added, but maybe some chaos. I can definitely provide chaos, River promised. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my perfectly organized life feeling suddenly too small. My heart wasn't whispering or shouting anymore. It was singing a wild, reckless song I'd never let myself hear before. And for the first time in years, I wondered what would happen if I actually listened. I called in sick to work on Monday. I'd never called in sick when I wasn't actually sick. The lie felt both shameful and thrilling as it left my mouth. River had texted me at 6 a.m., change of plans, grandmother's having a good day, she wants to make paella, says she can't feed a starving artist and his new friend without proper Spanish food. Dinner at her place, fair warning, she will ask you 1,000 questions and possibly try to adopt you. I should have said no, I should have gone to work, maintained my perfect attendance record, stayed in my lane. Instead, I texted back, what should I bring? His response, just yourself, and maybe your ability to pretend her paella is authentic even though we're pretty sure she just makes it up as she goes along. That afternoon, I found myself standing outside a small brownstone in Brooklyn, holding a bouquet of flowers and questioning every life choice that had led me here. I'd Googled what to bring when meeting your sort of boyfriend's grandmother and got no useful results, probably because normal people didn't do this on their third day of knowing someone. But River opened the door before I could spiral further, and his face lit up in that way that was becoming dangerously addictive. You came, he said, like he'd been worried I wouldn't. I called in sick to work, I blurted out. River's eyebrows shot up. Elena Cross plays hooky, this is monumental, we should commemorate this somehow, maybe a plaque. Shut up, I said, but I was smiling, it's not that big a deal. It's huge, you're basically a rebel now. Next thing you know, you'll be jaywalking and staying up past 10 p.m. on weeknights. River, stop tormenting the poor girl and let her inside, a voice called from within. The grandmother, Lucia Hayes, was exactly what you'd imagine if you asked an artist to paint warm grandmotherly energy. She was small and round, with silver hair pulled into a messy bun and eyes that sparkled with the kind of mischief that never ages. She wore a paint-stained apron over a vibrant floral dress, and when she hugged me, not shook my hand, hugged me, she smelled like saffron and lavender. Elena, River hasn't stopped talking about you. Grandmother, she laughed at my jokes. Grandmother, she has the most beautiful smile. Grandmother, I spilled coffee on her and she didn't file assault charges. She spoke in rapid-fire Spanish-accented English, her hands moving constantly. Come, you'll sit, you'll eat, you'll tell me if my grandson is treating you properly. Abuela, River groaned, his cheeks flushing. We're just friends. Lucia hummed in the universal grandmother tone that means I know better. Just friends who look at each other like they hung the moon. I may be old, Mijo, but I'm not blind. The evening unfolded like a dream I didn't want to wake from. Lucia's kitchen was chaos in the best way, pots bubbling, spices scattered across counters, vegetables in various states of preparation. She put me to work immediately, teaching me how to properly sauté the sofrito while River set the table and told stories about his childhood in this very house. He was always painting, Lucia said, stirring the rice with a wooden spoon that looked older than me. From when he was 3 years old, other children played with toys. My River painted the walls, the floor himself. His mother was very upset, but I said, Mija, this is not destruction, this is creation. Children need to create. She's the reason I'm an artist, River said from the dining room. She's the reason I'm not a lawyer like my parents wanted. Lawyers, Lucia made a dismissive gesture. What is a lawyer compared to someone who makes beauty? You know what your problem is, Alina. The subject change was so abrupt I nearly dropped my spoon. I have a problem. You have many problems, I can see them. She tapped her temple. Here in the mind, too much thinking, not enough feeling. Abuela, River warned, but she waved him off. No, she needs to hear this. You know how I know? You hold yourself like this, she demonstrated, making herself rigid and tight. Like if you relax for one moment you'll break, but that's not how breaking works, Carita. You don't break from relaxing, you break from being too stiff, like a dry branch snap, but a green branch, it bends, it sways, it survives the storm. I stood there, stunned into silence. This woman I'd known for 30 minutes had just articulated something I'd spent years avoiding. I don't know how to be a green branch, I said quietly. Lucia smiled, and it was so warm and understanding that I felt tears prick my eyes. That's okay, you have time to learn, and you have my river to help you. He's very good at bending, sometimes too good. You'll be good for each other. You'll teach him to think a little, he'll teach you to feel a little. We really are just friends, I insisted weakly. Of course, Lucia agreed in that same knowing tone. And my paella is just rice and water. Dinner was magnificent. The paella was probably not authentic. I suspected Lucia was, in fact, making it up as she went. But it was delicious and made with such obvious love that authenticity didn't matter. We ate at a table covered with a hand-embroidered cloth, surrounded by Lucia's collection of ceramic chickens. Everyone needs a hobby, and I like chickens. While she told stories about River's father's hippie phase and how she'd come from Spain as a young bride, and learned English from soap operas. That's why I say such dramatic things, she explained. I learned from days of our lives. Very good for vocabulary, very bad for normal conversation. After dinner, Lucia shooed us out to her garden, a small miracle of green in the middle of Brooklyn. She claimed she needed to clean the kitchen without young people making it worse, but I suspected she was giving us privacy. The garden was lit by string lights, and in the cool October air it felt like stepping into a secret world. River led me to a bench under an apple tree, and we sat close enough that our shoulders touched. Sorry about her, River said. She's a lot. She's wonderful, I said honestly. She reminds me of everything I'm not. What do you mean? She's so alive, so present. She makes paella without a recipe and collects ceramic chickens and says whatever she thinks. I've spent my whole life being the opposite of that, being careful and planned and controlled. River was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? When I first saw you in that coffee shop before I crashed into you, you looked so sad. Not obviously sad, you were on your phone checking something and you just looked hollow, like you were going through the motions. And I remember thinking, that beautiful woman has forgotten how to be happy. That's a lot to get from someone checking their phone, I said, deflecting. Maybe I recognized it because I've been there too, after my engagement ended. You were engaged, I turned to look at him. For about 6 months. Her name was Sophia. She was a curator, smart, beautiful, had her whole life mapped out. She wanted me to be more stable, more predictable. Wanted me to teach art instead of making it, to have regular hours and a retirement plan, and I almost did it. I almost became someone else because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. He paused, his fingers absently tracing patterns on his jeans, but it was killing me. Slowly suffocating everything that made me me. So I ended it and moved to Barcelona and remembered who I was. Do you regret it? The engagement? No, but I regret almost losing myself trying to fit into someone else's idea of who I should be. He turned to face me fully. That's why I keep pushing you about the planning and the control, not because there's anything wrong with organization or structure, but because I see you trying to fit into a life that's too small for you. And I barely know you, Alina, but I already know you're bigger than that. My throat felt tight. What if you're wrong? What if this is just who I am? Then I'm wrong, but what if I'm right? What if there's a version of Alina Cross who does impulsive things and laughs more and doesn't check her phone every 5 minutes to make sure she's still on schedule? Wouldn't you want to meet her? I thought about it, really thought about it. And the scary thing was, I did want to meet her. I wanted to know what it felt like to live without constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for everything to fall apart. I'm scared, I admitted. I know, that's okay. Scared is just excited with anxiety mixed in. They're cousins, basically. That doesn't make sense. Most of the best things don't, River said. Then, tentatively, he reached over and took my hand. His palm was rough with paint and work, warm and solid and real. Can we try something, an experiment? What kind of experiment? For the next 30 seconds, don't think about anything. Don't plan, don't worry about what comes next, don't calculate risks. Just sit here in this moment with me. Can you do that? It sounded simple, it was absolutely terrifying. But I nodded. Okay, River said softly, close your eyes. I did. Now breathe, just breathe, feel the air. Smell the garden, there's jasmine somewhere and abuela's herbs. Feel the bench under you, solid and steady. Feel my hand holding yours, hear the traffic in the distance, the wind in the leaves, just be here, right now, nowhere else. And for 30 seconds, 30 eternal, perfect seconds, I did exactly that. I let go of yesterday and tomorrow and lived entirely in now. And it was like taking the first real breath after years of holding my breath. When I opened my eyes, River was watching me with an expression I couldn't name. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Terrified," I said honestly, "but also alive." "That's the sweet spot," River said. "That's where the good stuff lives." Later, as he walked me to the subway, I realized something had shifted. Not dramatically, I wasn't suddenly a different person, but a door had opened just a crack and light was streaming through. At the station entrance, River hesitated. "Alina, can I kiss you? And if that's too fast or too friends, absolutely tell me to shut up and we'll pretend I never asked." My heart did that expanding thing again, filling my chest so completely I thought I might float away. "Yes," I said, "you can kiss me." And he did, softly, sweetly, like he was asking a question with his lips. It lasted maybe 5 seconds, but it rearranged my entire understanding of what a kiss could be. This wasn't the calculated, practiced kisses I'd experienced before. This was honest and vulnerable and absolutely terrifying and perfect. When we pulled apart, River was grinning like an idiot. "Wow." "Wow," I agreed. "So, maybe more than friends." "Definitely more than friends." "Cool, cool, cool, cool." He was bouncing slightly on his toes, energy radiating off him. "I'm going to go now before I say something stupid, but text me when you get home, and maybe we can do this again, the dinner and talking and kissing thing, not necessarily in that order." "Yes to all of that," I said, my face hurting from smiling. I floated home, there's no other word for it. And that night, instead of reviewing my schedule for the week, instead of preparing my meals and laying out my clothes and checking my email, I lay in bed and let myself feel. Felt the lingering warmth of River's hand in mine, felt the echo of his kiss, felt the possibility of a life lived in color instead of carefully organized grayscale. And my heart, finally allowed to speak, sang a song of beginning. The next 2 weeks were a blur of new sensations, new experiences, new versions of myself that I didn't recognize but desperately wanted to know. River and I fell into a pattern, though pattern is probably too organized a word for what we had. We'd meet after his studio hours, sometimes planned, often not. He'd text me things like, "There's a food truck selling dumplings shaped like cats. Emergency dumpling situation. Meet me in 20, and I'd find myself saying yes, abandoning whatever task I'd scheduled. We went to midnight movies and Sunday farmers markets. He taught me to see the city differently, not as a grid to navigate efficiently, but as a canvas full of moments worth pausing for. A street musician playing saxophone in the subway. The way afternoon light hit the East River. The small garden hidden behind a bookstore where someone had planted wildflowers in old boots. "You're teaching me to waste time," I told him one afternoon as we lay in Prospect Park, supposedly on our way to somewhere else but having stopped to watch clouds instead. "I'm teaching you that time spent enjoying life isn't wasted," he corrected, pointing at a cloud. "That one looks like a dragon eating a bicycle." "That's a very specific interpretation." "I'm an artist, specificity is my brand." He rolled onto his side to look at me. "You're different than you were 2 weeks ago, more here. Here. Present, like you've stopped living 3 days in the future." He was right. I hadn't even noticed it happening, but I'd stopped checking my calendar obsessively. I'd missed a networking event to watch River paint. I'd worn jeans to work on a Wednesday, small rebellions that felt monumental. But Marcus noticed too. "Alina, can we talk?" he asked one afternoon, closing my office door behind him. I looked up from my computer where I'd been half working and half texting River. "Sure, what's up?" Marcus sat down, his expression serious. "Are you okay? And I don't mean fine okay, I mean actually okay." "I'm great," I said and realized I meant it. Better than great, actually. "That's what I'm worried about," Marcus said carefully. "You've been different lately, coming in late, leaving early, making mistakes on reports." "I made one mistake." "You made 3, and these aren't like you. The Alina I know triple checks everything. The Alina I know doesn't blow off client meetings because she forgot to check her calendar." He leaned forward. "Look, if something good is happening in your personal life, I'm happy for you, really, but don't let it tank your career. Partnership decisions are coming up in 6 months. The mention of partnership should have sent adrenaline through my system. 6 months ago, it would have. But now, sitting in my gray office under fluorescent lights, all I could think was, do I even want this? The thought was so shocking that I couldn't speak. Just find some balance, Marcus said gently. Whatever's making you happy, don't lose yourself in it completely. I've seen it happen before. People get swept up in a new relationship and wake up 6 months later wondering where their life went. After he left, I sat there for a long time, his words echoing. Was I losing myself, or was I finally finding myself? My phone buzzed. Abuela wants to know if you're coming to Sunday dinner. She's making her famous empanadas. By famous, she means only she thinks they're famous. They're amazing though. Say yes. I typed back yes without hesitation, and tried to ignore the small voice in my head that sounded suspiciously like my mother asking when I'd become so irresponsible. Sunday dinner at Lucia's became a weekly tradition. She'd cook elaborate meals while River and I helped, though helped mostly meant we got in her way while she scolded us lovingly in Spanish. But this particular Sunday, 3 weeks into my relationship with River, Lucia seemed distracted. She moved more slowly, paused to lean against the counter more often. River noticed too. I could see the worry tightening around his eyes. Abuela, sit down, he said. Elena and I can handle the empanadas. You'll ruin them, Lucia said, but she sat anyway, which was concerning in itself. The fold has to be just right, like this, she demonstrated with her hands, but I noticed the slight tremor in her fingers. After dinner, while Lucia napped in her chair, River and I did the dishes in silence. His shoulders were tense, his movements more careful than usual. Is she okay? I asked quietly. I don't know, River scrubbed a plate with unnecessary force. Some days are better than others. Today isn't one of the good ones. Have you talked to her doctor? She won't go, says doctors just tell her things she already knows, that she's old and wearing out. He set the plate down carefully. I'm scared, Elena. I came back from Barcelona because I didn't want to miss time with her, but I don't think I'm ready for when time runs out. I dried my hands and wrapped my arms around him from behind, pressing my cheek against his back. You don't have to be ready, nobody's ever ready for that. We stood there for a long moment and I felt the weight of impermanence settling over us. This beautiful thing we were building, River and me, existed in a world where grandmothers got old and time didn't stop and everything was temporary. Come home with me tonight, River said suddenly, turning in my arms. Not for I mean we can if you want, but mostly I just don't want to be alone. I should have said no. It was Sunday night. I had an early meeting Monday morning. I had clothes to lay out and a presentation to review, but looking at River's face, seeing the vulnerability there, I couldn't imagine being anywhere else. Okay, I said. His apartment was exactly what I expected. A converted loft with high ceilings and terrible heating, every surface covered with art supplies or books or random objects he found interesting. A collection of interesting rocks sat on the windowsill. A half-finished mural covered one wall. Canvases were stacked everywhere. Sorry about the mess, River said, clearing a chair. I'm more of a creative chaos person than a Swedish minimalism person. I like it, I said, and meant it. The space felt alive in a way my meticulously organized apartment never had. We ended up on his couch, pressed together under a blanket, talking about everything and nothing. River told me about Barcelona, the light there, the way the city moved, why he'd stayed 2 years instead of the 6 months he'd planned. I was running away, he admitted. From Sofia, from expectations, from the feeling that I was failing at being an adult, and Barcelona let me be whoever I wanted to be. No one knew me, no one had expectations, I could just exist. Why did you come back? Abuela called, said she needed help with her garden, but I could hear something in her voice, this fragility, and I realized that I'd been so busy running away from pressure that I was running away from the people who actually mattered. He played with my fingers absently. What about you? What are you running from? I'm not running, I said automatically. Elena, he said my name gently like it was a question. I sighed. Okay, maybe I am. From expectations, from the feeling that I'm never good enough, from my mother's disappointed face every time I don't meet some invisible standard. Tell me about your mom. So I did. I told him about growing up as an only child to two accountants who believed in efficiency above all else. How love was shown through correct choices rather than affection. How I'd learned early that emotions were messy and problematic, something to be managed rather than expressed. I don't think they meant to be cold, I said. They just believed in rational decision-making. Feelings cloud judgment, they'd say. Better to think clearly than feel deeply. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard, River said quietly. It's practical. It's lonely, he pulled me closer. Alina, you know it's okay to feel things, right? It doesn't make you weak or irrational, it makes you human. I'm learning that, I said. You're teaching me that. Good, he kissed the top of my head. Because you feel incredible things, I can see it in your eyes sometimes, all these emotions fighting to get out. It's like watching a sunset trapped behind clouds. We fell asleep like that, tangled together on his couch, and I woke up at 2 a.m. to River watching me in the dim light from the window. Sorry, he whispered, didn't mean to be creepy, you just looked peaceful. I feel peaceful, I said, and it was true. For the first time in my life, I wasn't thinking about tomorrow's tasks or yesterday's mistakes. I was just here now with this person who saw me in ways I'd never let anyone see me before. Alina, River's voice was nervous. I'm falling in love with you, and I know that's probably too fast and too much, but I'm terrible at pretending I don't feel things, so there it is. You don't have to say anything back, I just needed you to know. My heart, that part of me I'd kept locked up for so long, cracked open completely, not broke, cracked like an egg releasing something new and living. I'm falling in love with you too, I whispered, and it's terrifying. The best things usually are, River said, and kissed me like I was something precious he was afraid to break. We made love that night slowly, tentatively, like we were learning a new language together. And afterward, lying in his bed with the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling, I felt something fundamental shift inside me. This was what I'd been missing, not just love or connection, but permission to be fully myself, messy, emotional, imperfect, and alive. Monday morning came with the harsh reality of alarm clocks and responsibilities. I arrived at work 45 minutes late, wearing yesterday's clothes, with no presentation prepared for the 9 a.m. client meeting. Peterson was waiting at my desk, his expression thunderous. My office now. I followed him, my stomach sinking. Marcus shot me a concerned look as I passed his cubicle, but I couldn't meet his eyes. Peterson closed the door with measured care, never a good sign. Ms. Cross, I've overlooked your recent lapses, because you've historically been an exemplary employee, but this is unacceptable. You missed the Riverside meeting entirely. The client meeting. Do you understand how that makes us look? The meeting, God, I'd completely forgotten about it. I'm so sorry, I can call them right now, apologize. Marcus covered for you, said you had a family emergency. Peterson leaned against his desk. Did you? No, I admitted, unable to lie. Then where were you? With River, lying in his arms, feeling things, living, but I couldn't say that. It sounded absurd even in my head, choosing a relationship over a career I'd spent years building. I forgot, I said finally. I have no excuse, it won't happen again. You're right, it won't. Peterson's voice was cold. Because you're suspended, 2 weeks, unpaid. Use the time to figure out if this career is actually what you want, Alina, because right now you're performing like someone who'd rather be anywhere else. The suspension hit me like a physical blow. I'd never been suspended from anything, never been disciplined. I was the good girl, the one who followed rules, who exceeded expectations. Mr. Peterson, please. 2 weeks, clear out for the day. We'll see you on November 15th, assuming you still want to be here. I packed my desk in a daze, Marcus hovering nearby with questions I couldn't answer. Alina, what happened? Are you okay? Was it that guy, River? I'm fine. I said automatically, I need to go. I made it to the street before the tears came. Not dramatic crying, just quiet tears of shame and confusion and something that might have been relief. My phone rang, my mother. Of course, the universe wasn't done kicking me yet. Alina, darling, I haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. Are you still alive? Hi, Mom, sorry, I've been busy. Too busy for your mother, I see. Her tone could have frozen lava. Well, I'm calling because your father and I would like to take you to dinner next Friday, Thompson's, 7 p.m. We have some exciting news about the firm. The firm. You know, Mr. Henderson is retiring. They're looking for someone to take over his position, someone young, driven, with excellent credentials. Your father mentioned you and they're very interested. It would mean relocating to Boston, but the partnership opportunities. Mom, I can't talk about this right now. Why not? This is your career, Alina, your future. Because I just got suspended, the words exploded out of me. I screwed up a meeting and got suspended for 2 weeks and I don't know if I even want to go back. Silence, long, heavy silence. Then you got suspended, my mother's voice was ice. Alina Margaret Cross, what is happening to you? This isn't who you are. Maybe it is, I was shouting now, people on the street giving me a wide berth. Maybe I've been pretending to be someone I'm not for 28 years because that's who you wanted me to be. That's ridiculous, we've only ever wanted you to be successful. No, you wanted me to be safe, to make logical choices, to never take risks or feel too much or want anything that couldn't be quantified on a spreadsheet. I was crying now, really crying. I met someone, Mom, someone who makes me happy, someone who makes me feel like maybe there's more to life than optimization and efficiency and 10-year plans. Oh, Alina? My mother's voice softened, but in that pitying way that was worse than anger. You're having a crisis, that's clear. This man, this artist, I assume, because you have terrible taste in rebels, he's made you lose perspective. You need to end this before you destroy everything you've built. What if I want to destroy it? I whispered. What if what I've built isn't what I actually want? Then you're a fool. My mother's voice turned sharp again. Love fades, Alina, passion dies, what's left is the life you've built, the security you've created. If you throw that away for some romantic fantasy, you'll regret it, and don't come crying to me when you do. She hung up. I stood on the sidewalk, phone in hand, feeling like my entire life was crumbling around me, suspended from work, fighting with my mother, falling in love with someone who made me question everything I thought I knew about myself. My phone buzzed with a text from River. Hope your day is going better than mine. Abuela had a fall, she's okay, but I'm taking her to the hospital just to check. Can I see you tonight? I could use one of your very organized, very calming hugs. And just like that, the choice became clear. I could go home to my empty apartment and spiral into anxiety about my career and my mother's disappointment and everything I was possibly throwing away. Or I could go to River, who needed me, and figure out the rest later. I texted back, on my way, tell me which hospital. For the first time in my life, I chose without thinking. I chose with my heart instead of my head. And it felt like jumping off a cliff with no idea if there was water below. I found River in the emergency room waiting area, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. His hands were shaking as he filled out paperwork, paint still dried in the creases of his knuckles. Hey, I said softly, sitting beside him. He looked up and his face crumpled with relief. You came. Of course I came. He set down the clipboard and pulled me into a hug that felt like desperation. She was reaching for something on a high shelf. I heard the crash from my studio. She says she's fine, but Alina, she's not fine. She's forgetting things more and more. Last week she called me by my grandfather's name. He's been dead for 15 years. What did the doctors say? They're running tests, but I know what they're going to say, that she's declining, that I need to consider assisted living, that we're running out of time. His voice broke. I'm not ready, I thought I'd have longer. We sat there for 2 hours watching nurses and doctors hurry past, listening to the soundtrack of emergency medicine. River told me stories about Lucia, how she'd taught him to make tortilla española when he was 6, how she'd been the only one who encouraged his art, how she'd smuggled him Spanish poetry books when his parents tried to make him study accounting. She's the reason I know how to love, River said quietly. My parents loved me, but it was conditional, dependent on achievement, but Abuela just loved me for existing. No requirements, no expectations, just love. That's a beautiful gift, I said. And I'm going to lose it. He turned to look at me, his eyes red. Alina, I'm so scared. I know, but you're not alone, I'm here. Why? The question was genuine, vulnerable. Why are you here? You barely know me, we've been dating for less than a month, you have your own life, your own problems. Why are you sitting in a hospital waiting room with me? And there it was, the question I'd been avoiding asking myself. Because, I said slowly, working it out as I spoke, for the first time in my life I'm not thinking about what makes sense. I'm not calculating costs and benefits or considering long-term implications. I'm just doing what my heart is telling me to do, and it's telling me that you matter, that being here matters, that love isn't something you schedule, it's something you show up for. River stared at me like I'd just revealed something miraculous. You really are falling in love with me. I really am, I confirmed, against all logic and reason. Best kind of love, River said and kissed me softly. A doctor appeared, calling River's name. Lucia was okay, bruised and shaken, but nothing broken. They wanted to keep her overnight for observation, but she'd be able to go home in the morning. Can I see her? River asked. Of course, she's been asking for you, and for someone named Alina. River looked at me hopefully. Go ahead, I said, I'll wait here. Come with me, please, she'll want to see you. So I followed him through the maze of hallways to Lucia's room. She looked tiny in the hospital bed, hooked up to monitors that beeped rhythmically, but her eyes were sharp when she saw us. There's my boy, she said, her voice weaker than usual. And there's my girl, come sit. River took her hand carefully like she was made of glass. Abuela, you scared me. I scared myself, Lucia admitted. Getting old is very inconvenient, all these body parts stop working right. She turned her gaze to me. Alina, you came. Of course. That's how I know, Lucia said with a small smile. Know what? That you love him, really love him, not just infatuation or temporary passion. Real love is showing up when things are hard, when there's nothing fun or romantic about it, when it would be easier to stay away. She squeezed my hand weakly. You're good for each other, but you know this already. Abuela, save your strength, River said. For what? I'm 87, if I can't speak truth now, when can I? She looked at me seriously. You have a choice coming, Carita, I can see it, your safe life or your real life. Choose the one that makes you feel alive, not the one that makes you feel safe. Safe is just another word for slow death. That's very dramatic, I said, but my voice shook. I learned from soap operas, remember, Lucia smiled. But I'm right, you know I'm right. Before I could respond, a nurse came in to check Lucia's vitals, shooing us out so she could rest. River and I ended up in the cafeteria, drinking terrible coffee and not saying much. She's right, River said finally. About the choice. I can feel you pulling away sometimes, like part of you is still standing in your old life, afraid to fully commit to this. I'm not. Alina, he said my name like a plea. I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm not asking you to give up your career or become some free-spirited artist. I'm just asking you to let yourself be happy, to stop apologizing for wanting something that doesn't fit into your parents' plan or society's expectations. What if I don't know how? I whispered. Then we figure it out together. River reached across the table for my hand. But I need to know you're actually here, fully here, not just visiting from your real life. The words hit hard because they were true. Part of me was still holding back, still keeping one foot in the safe zone, still measuring risks and maintaining exit strategies. I got suspended today, I said abruptly. River's eyes widened. What? From work for 2 weeks because I've been screwing up, missing meetings, losing focus. My boss basically told me to figure out if I actually want this career. I laughed, but it came out bitter. And then my mom called and tried to get me to interview for a partnership in Boston and told me I was throwing my life away for you. Am I, River asked quietly, making you throw your life away? No, the answer came immediately from that deep place where my heart lived. You're making me question whether the life I had was worth keeping. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of everything pressing down on us. So what do we do? River asked. I don't know, I admitted, but I know I don't want to lose this, lose you, lose the version of myself that exists when I'm with you. Then don't, River said simply, choose this, choose us, choose yourself. It's not that simple. Yes, it is, you're just scared to make it simple. He was right, I was terrified. Because choosing River, choosing this life meant admitting that everything I'd worked for might have been built on the wrong foundation. It meant disappointing my mother. It meant risking the security I'd spent years creating. It meant listening to my heart instead of my fear. I need time, I said. These 2 weeks of suspension, I need to think. River nodded, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. Okay, take your time. I'll be here when you figure it out. We stayed at the hospital until visiting hours ended, then River walked me to the subway. At the entrance, he kissed me goodbye, a kiss that tasted like goodbye might be permanent if I wasn't careful. Alina, he called as I started down the stairs. Whatever you decide, know that loving you has been the best thing that's happened to me in years. Even if you choose the safe path, I'll never regret this. I couldn't speak around the lump in my throat, so I just nodded and disappeared underground. On the train home, I stared at my reflection in the dark window and barely recognized the woman looking back. She had messy hair and yesterday's clothes and eyes that looked both terrified and alive. She looked like someone on the edge of a decision that would change everything. And for the first time in my life, I had no idea which way I was going to jump. I spent the first 3 days of my suspension doing what I always did in crisis, making lists and spreadsheets, pros and cons of staying at the firm, potential career paths, 5-year plans with and without River in the picture. The exercise was supposed to bring clarity. Instead, it just made everything worse. On day 4, Marcus called. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I'm fine, making good use of the time off." "Alina, I know you're spiraling." He paused. "Want to grab lunch? Get out of your head for a minute." We met at a deli near the office, and Marcus didn't waste time with small talk. "I'm worried about you," he said. "I've known you for 6 years, I've watched you be the most focused, driven person in that entire firm, and now, it's like you're having an identity crisis in real time." "Maybe I am," I admitted, picking at my sandwich. "Maybe I'm realizing that the person I've been isn't actually who I am. Or maybe you're letting a new relationship make you question things that don't need questioning." Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. "Look, I'm all for love and happiness, but you're about to throw away a career you've spent almost a decade building. For what? A guy you've known for a month who paints things and doesn't own ties." "It's not about him. Isn't it? Be honest, before River were you unhappy at work?" The question stopped me. Was I unhappy before, or had I just not known there were other ways to be? "I don't know," I said honestly. "I think I was numb, going through motions, checking boxes without asking why." "And now you're feeling things, so you think the answer is to blow up your entire life?" Marcus shook his head. "Alina, feelings are great, but they're not a substitute for wisdom. They're not a career plan or a retirement fund. What happens in 6 months when the newness wears off and you're unemployed with no prospects?" "You sound like my mother." "Your mother's not wrong about everything," Marcus said. "Sometimes the boring. Responsible choice is boring and responsible for a reason, because it works, because it keeps you stable and secure and able to weather storms." After lunch, I walked through the city aimlessly, Marcus's words echoing. He wasn't wrong. Nothing he'd said was wrong. But why did doing the right thing feel so much like dying slowly? I found myself at River's studio without planning to go there. He was working on a massive canvas, covered in paint, music blasting. He didn't notice me at first, and I got to watch him create, the way his whole body moved with the brush, the intensity of his focus, the pure joy on his face. This was a person fully alive. "Alina," he spotted me, face breaking into that sunrise smile. "You're here, look, I'm making a mess just like you ordered." He gestured at the paint-splattered floor. "It's beautiful," I said. "It's chaos," he corrected, "but sometimes chaos is exactly what you need. Come here, I want to show you something." He led me to the canvas, an abstract piece full of violent oranges and reds but threaded through with delicate gold lines. "What is it?" I asked. "You," he said simply, "or how I see you, all this fire and passion you keep locked up, trying to contain it with these careful, precise lines of control, but the fire's stronger, it's breaking through." I stared at the painting and something in my chest cracked wider. "River, I'm scared." "I know." He set down his brush, leaving smears of paint on his jeans as he wiped his hands. "But being scared isn't a good enough reason to choose wrong." "How do I know what's right?" "You ask your heart, and then you're brave enough to listen." I stayed at the studio all afternoon watching River work, occasionally helping mix colors or clean brushes. We didn't talk much, but the silence was comfortable. This was intimacy I'd never experienced, just existing in the same space, no performance required. As the sun set, painting the studio in golden light, River set down his brush and came to sit beside me. Can I tell you something? He asked. Always. I'm scared too. I'm scared that I'm asking too much of you, that I'm being selfish, pulling you away from a life that makes sense because I want you in mine. He took my hand, paint and all. If you decide to go back to the job, to the safe path, I'll understand. I'll be heartbroken, but I'll understand. Don't, I said, don't give me an easy out. I need you to fight for this, for us. Okay, River said. Then fight for it too. Stop sitting on the fence. Stop treating this like a temporary escape from your real life. Make it your real life. Choose me. Choose yourself. Choose the version of Alina who laughs at stupid jokes and forgets to check her calendar and feels things deeply enough to be scared. And if I fail, if I quit my job and 6 months from now we've fallen apart and I can't get my career back, then you'll have failed at something you actually wanted instead of succeeding at something you didn't. River cupped my face with paint-stained hands. Alina, life isn't a spreadsheet. You can't optimize your way into happiness. Sometimes you just have to jump and trust that you'll figure out the landing. I kissed him then, tasting paint and possibility. That night, lying in his bed, I made a decision. Not the final decision, not yet, but a first step. I'm going to dinner with my parents on Friday, I told River. They want me to interview for that partnership in Boston. I felt him tense beside me. Are you going to take it? I'm going to tell them no. My heart was racing, but my voice was steady. I'm going to tell them that I'm not the daughter they tried to create, that I'm done apologizing for wanting something different. River pulled me closer. That's terrifying and brave, and I'm so proud of you. Don't be proud yet, I said. I still have to actually do it. Friday came too quickly. I spent 3 hours getting ready, trying on different outfits that all felt like costumes. Finally, I settled on what felt most like me, not the corporate Alina or the trying too hard Alina, but just Alina. A simple dress, minimal makeup, my hair down instead of pulled back. River texted before I left, "You've got this, and whatever happens, I've got you. Go set yourself free." Thompson's was exactly the kind of restaurant my parents loved, expensive, understated, the type of place where you whispered instead of laughed. My father was already at the table, checking his watch. My mother was reviewing the menu with the intensity most people reserved for legal contracts. Alina, my father said, standing to kiss my cheek, you look different. Different bad or different good? I asked, sitting down. Just different, my mother interjected. Now, let's order quickly, we have a lot to discuss. We made it through appetizers before my mother launched into the pitch. The Henderson position would be perfect for you, she said. Boston's a wonderful city, clean, organized, excellent schools for when you eventually have children, and the prestige of the firm. Mom, I interrupted, I'm not taking the position. Silence, my father set down his fork carefully. Don't be hasty, he said, at least hear them out, schedule the interview. I don't want to interview, I don't want to move to Boston, I don't want the partnership. The words came easier than I expected. I'm not even sure I want to stay in consulting. My mother's face went through several emotions before settling on cold disappointment. This is about that artist, isn't it? This River person who's gotten into your head. It's about me finally listening to myself instead of you. Oh, Alina, my mother shook her head. You think you're being brave and independent, but you're just being naive. This man, this relationship, it's a fantasy. It won't last, and when it ends, you'll have nothing. No career, no prospects, no security. Maybe, I said, my voice shaking but determined. Or maybe I'll have something you've never had, a life I actually chose, a life that makes me happy. Happiness is overrated, my father said. Security, stability, respect, those last, those matter. They matter to you, I said, they don't matter to me, not anymore. Then you're a fool, my mother said coldly. And don't come to us when this all falls apart. Don't expect us to bail you out when you've thrown away every advantage we gave you. I won't, I said, standing, because I'm done trying to be the daughter you wanted. I'm going to be the person I actually am instead, even if you can't love that person. Alina, my father started, but I was already leaving. I made it to the street before the tears came, not sad tears but release tears, liberation tears. I'd done it, I'd actually done it. My phone rang. River. How did it go? He asked. Terrible, I said, laughing through tears. Absolutely terrible, they basically disowned me. Are you okay? I'm perfect, I said and meant it. I'm scared and unemployed and my parents hate me, but I'm perfect. Can I come over? Please do. I'll be the one covered in paint and waiting to celebrate your rebellion. I hung up and started walking, my heart beating a rhythm that felt like freedom. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one more choice to make, one more voice to listen to. The biggest one. The day I was supposed to return to work, I woke up at 5 a.m. in River's bed, my stomach twisted in knots. He was still asleep beside me, one arm draped across my waist, paint permanently stained into the creases of his knuckles. 2 weeks had passed since my suspension ended, 2 weeks since the dinner with my parents, 2 weeks of living in this beautiful limbo where I could pretend the real world didn't exist. But it did exist, and today I had to decide, go back to Morrison and Hayes or walk away from everything I'd built. I slipped out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake River. In the bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror, really looked at myself for maybe the first time in my life. Who was Alina Cross? The woman who'd graduated summa cum laude, the junior analyst on track for partnership, the daughter who always made the safe choice. Or the woman who laughed at stupid jokes and forgot to check her calendar and fell asleep in a paint-stained loft with a man who taught her to see in color. Both, neither, someone in between, still figuring it out. My phone buzzed with a message from Peterson. We expect to see you at 9 a.m. There will be a review meeting at 10, don't be late. The old Alina would have been there at 8:30, prepared and polished, would have walked into that review with apologies and promises to do better. But the old Alina was gone, and I wasn't sure who was left in her place. I made coffee in River's tiny kitchen, watching the city wake up through his paint-splattered windows. The sun was rising over the buildings, painting everything in shades of gold and pink that I never would have noticed 6 weeks ago. You're up early, River said, shuffling in, wearing pajama pants and nothing else, his hair doing that chaotic thing it always did in the morning. Big day. Supposedly. He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist and resting his chin on my shoulder. You don't have to go, you know, you could just not show up, make the decision by default. That's not how I work. Maybe it should be, he kissed my neck softly. But I know you need to do this your way, close the door properly instead of just leaving it open. Very Alina of you. Is that a compliment? Always, he said. I love that about you, how you need things to make sense even when you're being brave. You can't just jump, you have to understand the physics of falling first. I turned in his arms to face him. What if I go back? What if I walk into that office and realize I'm not ready to give it up? Then you're not ready, River said simply. And we'll figure it out. Long distance, weird schedules, whatever. I'm not going anywhere, Alina. I told you I'm all in on this, on us, on whatever version of life we build together. Even if that version includes me working 80-hour weeks. I won't lie, it would suck, I'd miss you, but I'd rather have you part-time and happy than full-time and miserable. He cupped my face gently. The question isn't whether I can handle your choices, it's whether you can, whether you can look at yourself in 5 years and be okay with the path you took. I kissed him, trying to pour everything I felt into that kiss, gratitude, love, terror, hope, all of it. Go, he said when we pulled apart. Go to work, listen to what they say, and then listen to what your heart says. Really listen, Alina, not your fear or your guilt or your parents' voices in your head. Listen to the part of you that knows what you actually want. The Morrison and Hayes offices felt different, or maybe I was different and everything else was exactly the same. I arrived at 8:45, not early enough to be desperate but not late enough to be defiant. A perfect middle ground that satisfied no one. Marcus was waiting at my desk, 2 coffees in hand. You came, he said, handing me one. Did you think I wouldn't? Honestly, I wasn't sure. You've been unpredictable lately. He sat on the edge of my desk, lowering his voice. Peterson's in a mood. The Riverside deal fell through after you missed those meetings. They went with Compton instead. My stomach dropped because of me. Because of a lot of things, but yeah, partially you were the lead analyst. When you flaked, they lost confidence. Marcus squeezed my shoulder. Look, I know you've been going through something, but this is serious, Alina. This is your career on the line. At exactly 10 a.m., I was called into Peterson's office. He sat behind his massive desk, hands folded, expression unreadable. Ms. Cross, welcome back. Thank you, sir. I'll be direct, your performance over the past 2 months has been unacceptable. The mistakes, the missed meetings, the clear lack of focus, this isn't the Alina Cross I hired 6 years ago. I know, I apologize. Let me finish, Peterson leaned forward. However, your work before this episode has been exemplary. You're smart, thorough, and when you're engaged, one of the best analysts we have, so I'm going to make you an offer. He slid a folder across the desk. 6 months probation. You'll be removed from lead analyst positions and will work under Marcus's supervision. No raises, no promotions. You'll essentially be starting over, proving yourself again. But if you can show me the dedication and focus you showed in your first 5 years here, partnership is still on the table, just delayed. I opened the folder. It was all there, the terms, the conditions, the path back to the life I'd been building. 6 months ago, I would have signed immediately, would have been grateful for the second chance. But 6 months ago, I didn't know what it felt like to wake up next to someone who saw me, really saw me. Didn't know what it felt like to spend an afternoon doing nothing but existing. Didn't know that my heart had a voice I'd been ignoring. Can I ask you something? I said quietly. Peterson raised an eyebrow. Go ahead. Are you happy doing this? He blinked, clearly not expecting the question. That's irrelevant. Is it? I looked at him, really looked. At the lines of stress around his eyes, the gray in his hair that seemed to have appeared overnight, the way he held himself like every muscle was permanently tensed. You work 70-hour weeks. You haven't taken a vacation in 3 years. Your marriage ended because your wife said she felt like a widow. I heard you telling Marcus that last year. Ms. Cross. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, I'm trying to understand. Is this, I gestured around the office, is this success? Because if it is, I'm not sure I want it anymore. Peterson sat back, studying me with an expression I couldn't read. You know what I see when I look at you? I see someone who's confusing temporary happiness for fulfillment. You met someone, you fell in love, your brain got flooded with dopamine and oxytocin, and now you think that feeling is more real than the career you've spent years building. But feelings fade, Ms. Cross, passion cools, and when it does, what are you left with? Maybe something better than this, I said softly. Or maybe nothing at all. Peterson pushed the folder closer. This is your choice. Sign this, commit to rebuilding your career here, or walk away. But if you walk away, you don't come back. This is a one-time offer. I looked at the folder, at the carefully typed terms, at the signature line waiting for my name. And I thought about River, covered in paint, asking me what I was afraid of. I thought about Lucia, telling me that safe was just another word for slow death. I thought about myself 6 weeks ago, going through the motions of a life that looked perfect from the outside but felt hollow from within. And for the first time, I heard it clearly, my heart, speaking in a voice that drowned out every other consideration. It wasn't whispering anymore, it wasn't shouting, it was simply stating a truth I'd known for weeks but been too afraid to acknowledge. This isn't your life, it never was. You built it because you were supposed to, not because you wanted to. And if you sign that paper, you're choosing to spend the rest of your life being someone you're not. I can't, I said, pushing the folder back across the desk. Peterson's expression didn't change. You're sure? No, I admitted, I'm terrified. I have no plan, no backup, no idea what I'm going to do next, but I'm sure that this isn't it. This isn't my path. Then you're a fool, Peterson said, echoing my mother's words. You're throwing away a career most people would kill for. Maybe, I said, standing up, but it's not the career I'd kill for, and I think I've spent enough time living a life that looks good on paper but feels wrong in practice. I walked to the door, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might escape my chest entirely. Ms. Cross, Peterson called. I turned back. For what it's worth, I hope you're right. I hope whatever you're choosing is worth what you're giving up. Me too, I said honestly. I packed my desk slowly, Marcus watching with a mixture of concern and something that might have been envy. You're really doing this, he said. I'm really doing this. You're insane, you know that, right? You're unemployed with no prospects, no safety net. I know. But you're smiling. I touched my face, surprised to find he was right. I was smiling, a real, genuine smile that came from somewhere deep and true. Yeah, I said, I guess I am. It's the artist, isn't it, River, he makes you happy. He does, but that's not why I'm leaving. I sealed the last box, looking around at the cubicle I'd occupied for 6 years. I'm leaving because staying would kill me, maybe slowly, maybe imperceptibly, but it would kill the part of me that's finally learning to live. Marcus pulled me into a hug. For the record, I think you're brave, stupid, and brave. Best kind of stupid, I said, my voice muffled against his shoulder. I called River from the elevator. Hey, he answered, and I could hear the nerves in his voice. How did it go? I quit. Silence. Then you quit. I quit. I'm unemployed and terrified, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I quit. Elena, his voice was thick with emotion. I'm so proud of you, so incredibly proud. Where are you? Leaving the office, heading home, I think, or maybe not home, I don't know, I don't have a plan. Come here, River said, come to the studio, we'll figure it out together. River, my voice broke. What if I made a huge mistake? Then you made it choosing yourself instead of choosing fear. That's never a mistake. He paused. Elena, I love you so much it scares me, and whatever happens next we face it together, okay? Okay, I whispered, I love you too. I hung up and stood on the sidewalk, boxes at my feet, the mid-morning sun warming my face. Around me, the city rushed past, people heading to jobs and appointments, checking phones, living their carefully scheduled lives. And I felt something I hadn't felt in longer than I could remember. Free. Terrified but free. River's studio was full of people when I arrived, other artists, a few gallery visitors, Lucius sitting in a chair near the window, calling out commentary in Spanish. He saw me immediately, abandoning a conversation mid-sentence to cross the space in 3 long strides. You came, he said, like he'd been afraid I wouldn't. I came, I confirmed. He looked at the boxes I was carrying. Is that everything? Everything that mattered, which wasn't much, I realized. Some personal items, a few photos, a plant Marcus had given me 3 years ago that I'd kept alive through sheer stubborn will. River took the boxes from me, setting them aside, then pulled me into a kiss that tasted like relief and promise and new beginnings. I'm unemployed, I said when we broke apart. I know. I have no plan. I know that too. I might have just ruined my entire life. Or, River said, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear, you might have just started actually living it. Lucia called from across the room, Elena, come here, let me see you. I crossed to her and she pulled me down to her level, studying my face with those sharp eyes that saw too much. You did it, she said, you chose yourself. How did you know? Because you're glowing, people who make the wrong choice look gray, you look like sunrise, she patted my cheek. Now comes the hard part. The hard part. Building the life you actually want instead of the life you're supposed to want, that takes real courage. Anyone can follow a path someone else laid out. Creating your own, that's terrifying. So what do I do? Lucia smiled, what does your heart tell you? I closed my eyes, taking a breath, and for the first time in my life I actually listened. Really, truly listened to what my heart was saying beneath all the fear and doubt and practical concerns. And it said, paint. Not literally, I had zero artistic talent, but create something, build something, do something that made me feel the way River looked when he was working on a canvas, completely absorbed, utterly alive, driven by passion instead of obligation. I want to create something, I said, opening my eyes. I don't know what yet, but something that matters, something that's mine. Then that's where you start, Lucia said, the rest will come. That night, after the gallery visitors left and the other artists packed up, River and I sat on the floor of his studio, sharing takeout Chinese food and talking about the future in a way I'd never let myself talk about it before, not as something to plan and optimize, but as something to build with our own hands. I think I want to start a business, I said. Something that helps people, maybe consulting for nonprofits or small businesses, people who need organization but can't afford the big firms. River's face lit up. That's perfect, you're incredible at that stuff, and you'd be helping people who are actually trying to make the world better instead of just making rich people richer. It's risky, it might not work. So, the best things are risky. He set down his food, turning to face me fully. Alina, 6 weeks ago you were the most risk-averse person I'd ever met, and now you're talking about starting a business from scratch. Do you realize how huge that is? It's terrifying. But you're doing it anyway. That's what brave looks like, not absence of fear, action despite it. We talked until 2 a.m., brainstorming ideas, planning without over-planning, dreaming out loud. And somewhere around midnight, surrounded by half-finished canvases and the smell of paint and possibility, I realized something. This was happiness, not the quiet contentment of a well-executed plan, but the messy, chaotic, terrifying joy of not knowing what came next and being okay with that. River, I said, breaking a comfortable silence. Yes. Thank you for spilling coffee on me, for seeing something in me I couldn't see, for pushing me to listen to my heart when I'd spent my whole life ignoring it. He smiled, that sunrise smile that had become my favorite thing in the world. Thank you for laughing instead of filing assault charges, for taking a chance on a paint-covered disaster who doesn't own ties, for being brave enough to become who you actually are. We fell asleep on his couch again, tangled together, and for the first time in 28 years, I went to bed without checking my calendar for tomorrow. Because tomorrow would come regardless, and whatever it brought, I'd face it as myself, messy, imperfect, still figuring it out, but finally alive. 6 months later. The sound of laughter pulled me from my laptop. I looked up to find River at his easel, covered in his usual amount of paint, grinning at something Lucia had said. She visited the studio most days now, sitting in her chair by the window, watching her grandson work while offering commentary in that mix of Spanish and soap opera English she'd perfected. 6 months since I'd walked away from Morrison and Hayes, 6 months since I'd chosen the uncertain path over the safe one. It hadn't been easy. There had been moments, many moments, when I'd questioned the decision, when I'd checked my bank account and felt panic rising, when I'd seen former colleagues posting about promotions on LinkedIn and wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. But then there were the other moments, the ones that made it worth it. Like 3 months ago when I'd signed my first client, a community arts center that needed help with grant applications and organizational structure. The director had cried when I'd presented my significantly discounted proposal, saying she'd been trying to find someone who understood both business and heart. Or 2 months ago when I'd helped a women's shelter reorganize their intake process, making it more efficient without making it less compassionate. One of the staff members had hugged me afterward, saying, you made it better without making it harder. Or last week when Marcus had called to tell me that 3 other consultants from Morrison and Hayes had reached out to him, asking about what I was doing, saying they were burned out and looking for something that mattered more. You started a movement, Marcus had said. People are talking about you, the girl who walked away from partnership to follow her heart. It's very inspiring, also very annoying for those of us still here. You could join me, I'd offered, start something new. Maybe, he'd said, ask me in 6 months. My business, Cross Consulting for Good, River had named it, saying my last name made me sound credible even when I was wearing jeans and sneakers, wasn't making me rich. But it was making me happy, and it turned out that was a currency I'd undervalued my entire life. Elena, Lucia called, stop working, come look at what my grandson has created. I saved my work and crossed to River's easel. The canvas showed a woman, me, I realized, sitting at a laptop but surrounded by swirls of color and light, not trapped by them but held by them, protected by them. It's how I see you now, River explained. Still organized, still careful with details but not afraid of the mess anymore. You've learned to let the color in. I kissed him, not caring that I got paint on my shirt. 6 months ago that would have bothered me, now it was just part of life, beautiful, messy, imperfect life. How are the finances looking? River asked, because he'd learned to ask practical questions and I'd learned to care about art. We'd met in the middle, creating something neither of us could have built alone. 3 new clients starting next month, I reported. I'll be able to pay rent without dipping into savings, maybe even afford to take you to dinner somewhere that doesn't serve food in paper boats. I like paper boats, River protested. I know, but I want to spoil you sometimes too. Lucia watched us with obvious satisfaction. Her health had stabilized, not improved but stabilized. River had found her a home health aide who came 3 times a week, helping with the tasks that were getting harder. She hated it but tolerated it, mostly because the aide was from Barcelona and they could gossip in Spanish together. You too, Lucia said, shaking her head. You make me believe in happy endings. It's not an ending, I corrected gently. It's barely a beginning. Exactly, Lucia said. The best love stories are the ones that don't end. They just keep going, keep growing, keep changing. Like gardens, you plant seeds, you water them, you pull weeds, and slowly something beautiful grows. My phone rang. My mother. We'd spoken twice since that disastrous dinner. Short, stilted conversations where she'd asked if I'd come to my senses yet and I'd said I'm happy, and we'd both pretended that was enough. But this time when I answered, her voice was different. Elena, your father and I have been talking. Okay. We don't understand your choices. We think you're being foolish and irresponsible and throwing away opportunities we worked hard to give you. My heart sank, Mom. But, she continued, we love you, even when we don't understand you, even when we think you're making mistakes, and we don't want to lose our daughter over this. I felt tears prick my eyes. I don't want to lose you either. Then we'll try to understand. You try to be patient with us while we figure out how to support a daughter who consultants for nonprofits instead of corporations. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't the unconditional acceptance I'd dreamed of, but it was a start, and sometimes starts were enough. I'd like that, I said, I'd really like that. After we hung up, River wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder, his favorite position, the one that made me feel both protected and free. Good news, he asked. My parents are trying. That's huge. It's a start, I leaned back into him. Everything's a start, this business, us figuring out how to be myself, it's all just beginning. Best kind of beginning, River said, the kind where you don't know the ending yet, where it's all possibility and potential. That night, lying in River's bed, our bed now since I'd unofficially moved in 3 months ago, I thought about Marcus's question from 6 months ago. What happens when the newness wears off? The newness had worn off. We'd had fights about his tendency to leave paint everywhere and my tendency to organize his chaos. We'd navigated hard days and stressful moments and the mundane realities of building lives that didn't look like anyone else's template. And we'd done it together, not perfectly but honestly, not easily but bravely. River, I whispered into the darkness. Ahem. My heart is still speaking, I can still hear it. Good, he murmured sleepily, what's it saying? I listened, tuning out the doubts and fears and practical concerns, focusing on that deeper voice that had been silent for so long. It's saying, I paused, finding the words, it's saying that this is right, that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, not because it's safe or logical or what anyone else wants, but because it's true, it's real, it's mine. River pulled me closer, that's the best thing hearts can say. 1 year later. The gallery opening was more crowded than River had expected. His grandmother series, 12 paintings chronicling Lucia's life from her arrival in America to her current days in her garden, had attracted attention from collectors and critics alike. I stood in the corner watching him navigate the attention with that perfect mix of humility and joy that made him who he was. He caught my eye across the room and winked, and I felt that familiar expanding sensation in my chest, the one that meant my heart was speaking, even without words. Elena Cross, a woman approached, hand extended. I'm Sarah Chen from the Brookfield Foundation. I've been following your work with nonprofits, very impressive. Thank you, I said, shaking her hand. We're looking for someone to help develop a new program, consulting services for under-resourced community organizations. Interested? We talked for 20 minutes and by the end I had a meeting scheduled for next week. The project would be bigger than anything I'd tackled alone. I'd need to hire people, build a real infrastructure, take on more risk. The old Elena would have been paralyzed by the logistics. The new Elena, the real Elena, felt excitement instead of fear. River found me after the gallery started clearing out, pulling me into a quiet corner. There's something I need to tell you, he said, and I heard nervousness in his voice. Okay. I've been offered a residency. 3 months in Barcelona, all expenses paid, a chance to work with some incredible artists. My heart stuttered, Barcelona. I know it's complicated, the timing is terrible, your business is growing, you've got this new project. River, I stopped him, when do you leave? That's the thing, I'm not going, I'm turning it down. What, no you can't. I can't leave you, he said simply. Not now, not when everything's coming together for you, I'll find other opportunities. Stop, I said firmly, you're going. Elena. You're going and I'm going with you. He blinked, what? I can consult from anywhere, half my meetings are virtual anyway, and 3 months in Barcelona watching you work exploring the city together, I smiled. That sounds like exactly the kind of adventure my heart has been asking for. Are you serious? Completely serious, I spent 28 years playing it safe, I think I can handle 3 months of spontaneous. I kissed him softly. Besides, someone wise once told me that life isn't a spreadsheet, sometimes you have to make a mess, that's where the good stuff happens. River laughed, spinning me in a circle, you're quoting me back to me. I learned from the best. We told Lucia later that night, over her famous paella. Barcelona, she exclaimed. You'll love it, the light there, it's different than anywhere else, you'll see why my grandson became an artist. Will you be okay without us for 3 months, I asked. Lucia waved dismissively. I have my home aid, my garden, my soap operas, I'll survive. Besides, you young people need adventure, all this stability, it's good, but you still need to remember how to fly. We'll video call every day, River promised. You better, Lucia said. I want to see everything, the art, the city, the food, and Elena, she fixed me with that knowing look. Take care of my grandson, make sure he doesn't lose himself in the work. I will, and he'll make sure I don't lose myself in planning, I said, squeezing River's hand. Perfect, Lucia said. That's how it should be, 2 halves making a whole that's bigger than either part alone. 2 years later. I'm writing this from our apartment, mine and River's. Not his apartment where I unofficially moved in, but our apartment that we chose together. It's small, paint-stained in several places, full of plants I've learned to keep alive and canvases in various states of completion. It's home. My consulting business has grown beyond anything I imagined. I now have a team of 4, all of us working to help organizations that are trying to make the world better. We're not rich, but we're doing good work, work that matters. River's career has taken off too. After Barcelona, galleries started calling. His Grandmother series became the foundation of a larger exploration of family, memory, and time. He's still the same person, still leaves paint everywhere, still forgets to check his calendar, but he's building something beautiful. And Lucia, she's still here, still tending her garden, still offering wisdom from soap operas and lived experience. She moves slower now, needs more help, but her mind is sharp and her heart is sharper. Last week she asked me to sit with her in the garden. Elena, she said, when you first came to my house you looked like a woman holding her breath, waiting for permission to exhale. I admitted. I didn't even realize it until I met River, until he showed me what it felt like to actually breathe. And now I'm breathing every day. Even when it's hard, even when I'm scared, I'm breathing and living and letting my heart speak. Lucia smiled, that warm smile that held decades of wisdom. That's all any of us can do, listen to our hearts and be brave enough to follow where they lead, even when it's messy, even when it's scary, especially then. I think about that conversation a lot, about breath and bravery and listening. For 28 years, I silenced my heart, believing that logic and planning and control were the paths to a good life. I wasn't completely wrong, those things have their place. But I was missing the essential ingredient, truth. Living truthfully, feeling honestly, choosing bravely. The moment my heart finally spoke wasn't one single moment. It was 1,000 small moments building on each other like brushstrokes on a canvas. It was laughing when River spilled coffee on me instead of getting angry. It was saying yes to dinner when I'd planned to meal prep. It was letting myself fall in love even though I couldn't predict the outcome. It was standing up to my mother even though I knew it would hurt. It was walking away from a career that looked perfect but felt wrong. It was choosing uncertainty over security, passion over practicality, truth over comfort. And in each of those moments my heart spoke, quietly at first then louder until I couldn't ignore it anymore. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, leaving consulting, disrupting my life, choosing the risky path, and I tell them the truth. I regret the 28 years I spent not listening. Life is short and unpredictable and often messy. We spend so much time trying to control it, organize it, optimize it, but the best parts, the parts that make us feel truly alive, are often the unplanned ones, the moments when we let go of the script and improvise. The moments when we finally let our hearts speak. And we're brave enough to listen. If you're reading this, maybe you're like I was, holding your breath, waiting for permission to exhale. Maybe you're playing it safe, checking boxes, building a life that looks good on paper but feels hollow in practice. If that's you, I want to tell you something. Your heart is speaking. Right now, in this moment, it's whispering truths you've been ignoring. Maybe it's saying this job isn't right. Maybe it's saying this relationship isn't healthy. Maybe it's saying this version of yourself isn't true. Whatever it's saying, please listen, not to me, not to your parents or your friends or society's expectations. Listen to your heart. It might be terrifying, it probably will be. The path might be unclear, the outcome uncertain. But I promise you this, the moment you start listening, really listening to what your heart has been trying to tell you, that's the moment you start truly living. That's the moment everything changes. That's the moment you finally come alive. So breathe, feel, choose, be brave. Let your heart speak. And when it does, listen.